Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be taking down Nocturnal from HackTheBox. This is part of their in-between machines, is what I like to call them, between the competitive seasons. So this was between competitive season 8 and 9, or maybe it was 7 and 8. I'm not exactly sure the timeline on this, but this was not a part of the seasonal machines. Instead, it was just a standalone. But regardless, let's do this thing. Let's take down Nocturnal. No more yapping from me. Let's get straight into it. On my other monitor, I already started the machine, and the IP is 10.10.11.64. Don't let me forget. But before I do that, I'm going to make a new directory in my HackTheBox folder called Nocturnal. I'll cd into that, and I'll run Nmap on Nocturnal. So it's autofilling, which is fantastic. So -T4 is just a timing thing, makes it run a little bit faster. -A for all flags. This includes -SC, -SV, and -O for OS information. So you see here we got a little bit of operating system information. So that's what the -A encompasses. And then we're going to output that into an nmap.txt file. By the way, make sure you are connected to your HackTheBox VPN, or else you will not be able to run Nmap against this machine. So I have my VPN in my VPN folder called competitive and security.ovpn. Run that with the sudo, and you get initialization sequence complete. That's how you know you are good to go. But enough of that. Let's continue on here. So we have only 2 ports open, which is easy from a complexity standpoint. We only need to look at pretty much one thing, and that is HTTP on port 80. A lot of the time, SSH is not going to be vulnerable off the rip. That's just how HackTheBox works, and generally that's how SSH works as well. It's not going to be vulnerable to a pretty secure protocol unless you have a really, really outdated version. So we're seeing we were getting a little redirect here to, let's see, nocturnal.htb, I think, or it says welcome to Nocturnal. Enough looking at this Nmap scan. Let's just pull off the website and see what we get. 10.10.11.64. And yes, I already did this box before. So if I sudo nano etc hosts, just for demonstration point, let's take this out of our etc host file and pretend that you didn't see that. 10.10.11.64. It auto redirects anyways. Okay. So what you'd see here generally is you'd type in the IP of 10.10.10 or 10.10.11.64. It'd say, hey, we don't recognize this, fix it. Or you're just going to say you're going to have a proxy issue or something like that. Go into your etc host file, enter your IP 10.10.11.64, and the redirect host, which is nocturnal.htb, save, exit, and then you'll see this page, which is welcome to Nocturnal. Please log in and register. And the first thing that I'm going to do on this website is look for functionality, right? What is this website built for? What's the purpose of it? So let's read a little bit about why use Nocturnal and what Nocturnal is before we start trying to hack it. Start uploading and viewing your files. So we can upload Word files, Excel files, PDF documents. It looks like it's a makeshift cloud service sort of thing. So your files are backed up and they have 24/7 support at this email. Okay, so I think that's good information. We can upload files, we can view files, sort of like a cloud storage is what I'm reading here. But let's register. I'm gonna click register. Gonna load a little bit. We'll do nth as a username, and my password will be password. I think I actually typed that wrong. So password, register, and then we'll log in with the same credentials. Password, login. Okay, so welcome nth, upload a file, and we have no files, and we can log out. Okay, so let's see how strict they are on the file uploads. They said Word, Excel, and PDFs. Let's see if we can upload a PHP file, for example, right? So we know this website's running PHP, not just for the, I'm opening Caido, obviously, to work on this. Let's new project called Nocturnal, create, I'll half that, close this part. But anyways, so this website is running PHP. If we see that here at the extension, but we can also see that in Wappalizer. We see it's running PHP here. As such, I'm going to run a quick Gobuster on nocturnal.htb. Wow, it's like I did this box already and my commands are autofilling. So we're going to run a directory busting scan on nocturnal.htb using this word list, and we're going to only look for .php. So this -x PHP is saying, hey, we only want to look for PHP files. Let's let that run. And in the background, let's intercept and take a look at some requests here. I'm going to open a new tab and I'll nano shell.php. I want to try to upload a PHP shell, and I usually go to revshells.com, 10.10.14.186, PHP. I'll just do PHP pentest monkey for now. I'll copy that, paste that here, save, exit, head shell.php. Okay, it looks good. And what happens if we try to upload this? So I'm going to go to intercept, I'll queue, and I will turn on my Caido Foxy proxy. I will upload shell.php, click upload file. I'll forward that on, and no luck. So invalid file type, only PDF, doc, docx, XLS, XLSX, and ODT are allowed. Okay, so no luck there. Let's try uploading a normal file, normal being PDF, right? Let's see if I have any PDFs here. We've got, I'm just trying to find one. Come on, give me a .pdf, please. Okay, here, .pdf. So I'll copy that to here. If I open vline, does it actually open it? Okay, cool. This is an actual PDF. So let's try uploading that. Let me make sure I queue again. And upload file. Forward that along. And it looks like we upload successfully because we have a file here on our account. Let's take a look at that file. So we got two post requests, obviously, one using shell.php and one using that PDF. So this one is going to be the PDF, and it looks like it just uploaded fine. And the other one is our PHP shell, and we get that error. And I'm not seeing anything crazy in this request. So I guess we'll just keep trudging on to keep seeing the functionality here. Let's go back to Gobuster, see if it found anything. Make this a little bit bigger. So we've got admin, which I'm assuming we cannot access quite yet. Admin.php. I think it's just going to give us a 403, which is fine. It's not loading anyways. We have backups, which I'm assuming we won't be able to find. It looks like everything's being a little slow right now, which is okay. Let's go to backups. If I could type. I'm assuming all of these are just going to be 301 redirect to a login page or something like that, or access denied. But we have index, login, logout, register. We have all these which are 403, which I'm assuming are just data stores. And then we also have view.php. If we go back to our dashboard here and hover over, and it's might be hard to see, but if you hover over the file you just uploaded, we see view.php in action. So in the bottom left, we got view.php, and it's got two parameters. So the first one is going to be username, and the second one is going to be file. I'm going to click on that just so we get the Caido. Maybe that's why it's not doing anything. I'm still queuing. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, let's go back to, so backups is forbidden, admin.php is not found. That, there's a Google search. Let's go back to what we want, view.php. So I'm gonna send this to repeater, or this is Caido. Repeater doesn't exist, I meant replay. Sorry guys. I'll full screen this just so we can see a little bit better. I wonder if I can make it bigger. There we go. So we've got an interesting view.php here. So we have our username, was the one we created at the beginning, and our file that we uploaded. And whenever I see parameters in the URL like this, I immediately think IDOR. So insecure direct object reference. I almost forgot the acronym there, but IDOR is what the vulnerability here is going to be called. And that's whenever we're using parameters in a URL or anywhere for that matter, and being able to manipulate those parameters to get other information. In this case, it's going to be other user information because we're curious about this username parameter. I don't think we're going to be able to find straight PDF files. Like if we open this in a new tab, or I guess I'll just copy this and go here, paste. So if we view.php, dang it, and we do, instead of the direct file name, if we do just .pdf, let's see what comes up. Dang it, I gotta stop doing that. Nocturnal.htb, view.php, let me paste that again, and okay, visit this. This is what I was looking for. So if we do just .pdf, it says the file does not exist. So .pdf on this account of NTH doesn't exist. But we still get available files for downloads. And this is when I was first thinking of IDOR, right? So we can parse through and we can do any file extension here and it's still going to show up. If something's here, it's still going to show up. It doesn't matter what's here. I wonder if we just do like a dot. So that it does need a valid file extension. So it does need like that PDF, that doc, it can be anything, but it'll show up for this account. So the idea here is let's parse through a bunch of different usernames and possible usernames and see if any of them have any files for us to download. It's like, for example, let's see admin. There's no files here. And we're not going to be able to do that manually because there's hundreds of thousands of possible usernames, but we are going to use Caido or Burp Suite or FF or whatever tool of your choice to do this. So I'm going to right click here, click Send to Automate, and here we're going to highlight, I'm going to change this so it's just .pdf. Again, this can be any valid extension. It doesn't have to be PDF. It could be .doc or .odt or whatever you want. I'll double click here, click a placeholder, and I'm going to add the ZadoNet 10 million usernames. So this user list actually can be found in Kali. It comes default installed. So if you do like head user share word lists, sec lists, usernames, it's right here. So ZadoNet 10 million usernames, and that's the one we're gonna be using for this username brute force attack or enumeration attack. So we made this a payload or a placeholder rather, and we're going to try to stuff all of these usernames into this payload and see what comes back. Let's just click run and see what happens. So you can see here on the left-hand side, this is the username payload. If we click any of these payloads coming up, we can see that username here in Danny Boy, and we're doing that .pdf. And what we're really looking for is anything in the length category. So let's filter by length, and we see we have a few different IDs with different lengths here. So I think we can pause here. So we've got Amanda with 3391, Hello with 3386, Tobias 3315, but all the other ones are 3263. So this is where there's nothing, right? Or we have a user not found error, which is even better. So if we do see, and we see admin here, so what happens when we see admin? We see the file does not exist. So if the user exists, we get, but there's no files, we get this error. But if the user doesn't exist, we get this error, user not found. But let's look at this other one, ASD. And to be honest, I don't think this is default. I think this is just folks using, so yeah, there's no files here. What about hello? Hello.pdf, that could be interesting. What about Amanda? Amanda has privacy.odt. Let's look at Amanda first. So what we can do here, we can go back to our browser, and instead of username equals admin, let's go Amanda. Oops, I did not mean to do that /. I just did it again. and we see privacy.otd. And we can actually download this file and open it up. Again, this is a massive IDOR vulnerability because this means if I have a valid username, I can look at any user's uploaded files and download them for myself. So that is a huge vulnerability in that application. And we see we have a doc here. We've got, Dear Amanda, Nocturnal has set the following temporary password for you, and they give us this temporary password. This password has been set for all of our services, so it's essential you change it on your first login to ensure the security of your account and our infrastructure. Okay, so let's take that password and let me make a creds document. So nano creds.txt. I'm going to say Amanda with these credentials, and I can close this. And we did see that SSH was available on the machine. So let's try Amanda at nocturnal.htb. And let's paste in that password and we get permission denied. So maybe Amanda doesn't have SSH access to Nocturnal. But we did see an admin.php. So let's log in as Amanda. So let's go to login.php. Username is Amanda. Password is, if I could paste it. Okay, can't paste it. Let's creds, paste, login. There we go. And we see here, this is the privacy that we saw, privacy.odt, and here we have go to admin panel. Let's click that and we get our admin panel. Fantastic. So we've got a bunch of different PHP files that we can interact with and look at. So like if I click admin.php, we can actually view the file content of the PHP that's running on the backend here. We also have a backups folder that we can't interact with, and the same thing with uploads. If we keep scrolling down, and I'll full screen this, we can actually create our own backup by entering a password. So let's enter our password of password and create a backup. We scroll down again, backup created successfully, and we can download the backup here. And the thing is, it looks like all of the stuff here are things that we already know and already see, right? We see vline, so this is the PDF we uploaded, privacy.ott, that's the ODT file that we already saw, and all these PHPs we can interact with. So let's take a look, I guess at first at admin.php. And what we're going to look at and what we want to try to find here are any credentials. Clearly it's interacting with some sort of database on the back end to save these files and present them to the user. So if there's any database credentials or anything like that, that's what we're really going to be looking for here. You see we've got some comments. Let's just keep going. So we actually have blacklisted characters here. So I'm going to make a gedit. Just paste that. Oops. Take a copy of that and paste that because we may, and we are going to use this later. So we see that blacklisted characters, and I'm assuming this is for the only parameter we have access to, which is the backup password. So for example, let's go into Caido. I'll turn intercept on. Actually, I don't even need to turn intercept on. Let me just turn on Foxy. Oh, it is on. If I can find that post request. Post admin.php. And okay, I think this is okay. Let's send this to the replay function. I almost said repeater again. And password equals password. So if we do password and then these two squiggly bracelets, because I think that's, yep, both of these are forbidden characters, and click send now, we should see that, hey, you're not allowed to do this. And we see, keep going down, error, try another password. And I'm gonna get rid of this view because it's kind of annoying, but we are gonna get rid of this later. But we see here that this blacklisted characters are for the password. So we're unable to enter a semicolon, ampersand, a pipe here, or any of these characters for when we're making our password. And this is pretty common for applications like this. This is a sanitization method. So let's keep going here. This is all the CSS. This is the password to create the backup. These are the actual parameters here. And this is really interesting, and this is kind of what I was looking for. So here's the command that's actually running on the back end to create our backup, right? This is the PHP command that's running. And let's take this and I'll break it down here in our gedit pad. Make it a little bigger as well. So we have our zip command, and I'm going to take out all of the extra quotes and periods. So this is just concatenation in PHP. So whenever you're running a PHP command, you can do this, this dot to concatenate extra commands or parameters. So let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of this and this and these and this and this. And I think this looks good. So this is our original command for what bash command is running to make our backups. So we're using zip to create a backup excluding this directory, and we are doing it recursively, and we're using a password parameter, which we saw earlier and we manually interacted with. And this is the backup name, and we're putting it out to a log file. Okay, so basically what's happening here is I'm looking at command injection. Okay, how can we break out of this zip command in order to execute our own commands? And let's take note of this password parameter. So we can type anything here. We can type anything in this parameter and it will, as long as it's not part of these blacklisted characters, we have access to type anything here. So what happens if we try to break out of this PHP command and execute our own code? Well, how can we do that? We can do that by, if you look in these blacklisted characters, what's not here is there's no quotes here. So what we can do is we can add a quote here and type a command and end quote. And so it'll try to type this, not working. Then we break out here because this is our password. This is our user input. We break out at this quote, it executes this command, and it closes the quote, and then this fails. So let's try that live. Let's try doing that in this replay tab, actually. I'm going to take that view out just because it's annoying. And let's do password, single quote, who am I, end quote. Let's click send. Hopefully I didn't mess up the post request by taking out that view. Scroll all the way down, and we see we get an error for creating a backup. So maybe I did screw up the view here. Let's try in just a normal here. I'll just do it here. Let's do password, quote, who am I, end quote. And it's on Caido, so I should be able to see it. Not now. And actually, this is fantastic that we see our output here. We see a bash error saying permission denied. So let's take a look at what we actually just did. Send this to replay. And I'm going to try this again with another command. Let's just try ID, something simple, send. And see if we can get command injection. And get another error creating the backup. So let's try with a different thing. We just got to finagle this payload, because in theory, this should be working. Let's do like ls maybe. Seeing what commands work, what commands don't, seeing if there's anything here for us to work with. We get permission denied. Again, this bash error is really good to see because it shows us that we actually are interacting with the bash that's running this command on the back end. We are able to break out and run our own commands, but we're getting permission denied. What if we try it with one quote? What happens? We should get the same sort of permission denied, or we should get some sort of error. And this is really good. Right, so we see that ID is actually executing, but we are missing that end quote. What happens if I add it back? Maybe we'll get lucky here. And finally, we get a successful command. So we see we are the www data user and we have successful command execution. So again, we're able to break out of this zip command by adding our own arbitrary double quotes here, because it's not part of the blacklisted characters. So we can add our own quotes here. I wonder if we can do it with single quotes. Probably not, is my guess. But while I'm here recording this video, might as well try it. And it doesn't work. Okay, back to, I wonder if who am I will work now. And from just a doing this box multiple times sort of perspective, I realized that some of these commands will have a hard time working. So when I was testing out this box, doing it for the first time, who am I? This exact payload did work, but now it's getting permission denied. So some things will work and not work just depending on the little things. But seeing ID is a great thing here. But how can we change this and leverage this into something actually notable? So I'm going to exit out of this. We're kind of done here. Let's try to get either a shell or some form of additional exploitation. The first thing we have to do is establish how can we actually run commands with spaces. I don't know if you noticed, and I probably shouldn't have closed that tab, but on the admin.php page, we saw the list of blacklisted characters, and one of those characters is a space. Similarly, all the other special characters that Bash uses to either concatenate commands or emulate what a space could do are blacklisted. But again, this blacklisted characters list is missing something. And a really neat trick I learned is using tab. So using tab to emulate a space. And as you just saw, I'm pressing tab here, and instead of tabbing where my cursor is, it's actually tabbing the entire line. So that's not what we want. Instead, if we want to run lsla, and I'll show you this now, it won't be able to work. All right, error, try another password. But what we can do is we can use tab. So if we search up tab URL encoding, since we can't actually use tab in the Caido interface, let's see, what are we looking for? I'm really glad that it's cooperating here. Tab. Okay, let's try again. What is tab in URL encoding? %09. Thank you, Google AI. Go back to Caido. So we do %09 here, and let's see if we get lucky. ls didn't work to start, so I'd be surprised if it worked now. But it actually does, right? So we see the LSLA output, and we see all the files that we previously had access to. So damage.php, dashboards, we can now go into backups and uploads, but let's see if we can take that one step further. What if we cat out etc password? And again, sometimes these commands will work, sometimes they won't. Scroll down. This time it doesn't work. What happens if I send the same thing again? Just to see if we can get this working. And again, point proven. Here we have the etc password output. And scrolling down to the actual users, we actually see we do have a Tobias user. So we kind of saw that earlier in the when we were fuzzing for usernames, but Tobias does exist and is a user on the box. So if we are to SSH as someone, it would be Tobias. But let's see if we can actually look in his directory, his home directory, ls la home Tobias. And we're going to need to add another %09 here. And my guess is on the negative side. And again, yeah, permission denied. So we can't access his directory. So while we don't have permission to view Tobias's directory, let's see what else we can view as the etc, or not as the etc password, as the www data user. So we saw that when we did LSLA before, we saw all the files and the PHPs that we saw from the admin dashboard. What happens if we LSLA one directory up? Let's see what we see. Scroll down. and we get an error. But while I'm here, I want to show you why I'm doing this. So earlier on in this code, we see a call out to the database itself, or at least I think we do. Or it could be on a different file. I think it's on dashboard actually. Let's see here. Yes, right here. So the database, we see where the database is located. It's located one directory up in nocturnal database, nocturnaldatabase.db. So let's see if we can access this file and cat out this file. In fact, I'm just going to take this whole path and see if we can cat it out. So let's cat %09 this path. And I'll be honestly shocked if it cats out. It's taking a long time to load, so maybe it is. Okay, we see we get output, but again, nothing here. So we could try a couple things at this point. We could try uploading files or getting a shell, and I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try to get a shell. So I like to use, we'll use netcat for these purposes. So let's do like a busybox netcat shell. I'll copy that and I'll paste that here. So busybox, and again, we have to add the %09s for the tabs to replace the spaces, just to see if we can get a shell and download this file. Also, shell, more stable environment, could do us better than just trying to run all of our commands through Caido. nc lvmp 4444. Let's run the command. Hopefully we get a shell. We get connection back, which is always good. We run ID, and we have a shell on the box. I think there's Python 3 on this box. Which Python 3? Maybe not. What happens if I just run the... Oh, it is there. Fantastic. Import pty p2, or hold on. I'm forgetting the command. Python 3-c import pty.spawn bin bash. Okay, so our reverse shell did not like that. Let's try that again. We will not be getting a stable shell this time around. Instead, let's go up one directory. Let's cd into the nocturnal database. Let's netcat our IP so that we're going to transfer this file over. I'll go on port 1234 and give the nocturnal DB. And on the other side here, I'm going to listen on port 1234 and export the nocturnal.database. Run this command, we see the connection comes through. I'll give it a second to load and make sure everything transfers over. And I can cut it off on this side. I'll Control C, ls, and we see we now have the SQLite nocturnal database. I can use open, the open command on Kali, just open that, and it will open with whatever table or whatever DB browser for SQLite. I use this pretty often, honestly, when I'm doing databases. It's built into Kali. It's great. We're going to go to this Browse Data tab, and on the table, we're going to go to Users, and here is really what we're looking for. We are seeing the admin user's hash and Amanda's hash, but more importantly, Tobias's hash. This was the user we saw on Etsy password, right? This is the user that we want. So that is an MD5 hash. I'll copy that, and we will run hashcat. I'll make a Tobias hash.text, paste it in there, hashcat-m0 Tobias hash.text, user share where this rock you. And we'll let hashcat run in normally, and it's already in the pot file. So we're going to use John on this hash instead. John Tobias hash.text dash word list equals user share where this rock you. And I think that's good. I have to add a -- format equals raw MD5. And there we go. If you're wondering, this hashcode didn't work because, again, I've done this box before. So in my pot file, which is basically just hashcat's history, it stores all of the hashes you crack so you don't waste resources trying to crack the same hashes over and over again. So that hash was still in my hashcat history, therefore it did not try to crack it. John, though, I have not cracked this hash on John, and we see we get a credential of slow motion apocalypse. So let's add that to our creds file and try SSHing in as Tobias. And Tobias's password, and we are in as Tobias. Fantastic. The first thing I'm going to do is sudo-l. I do this on every machine, regardless of if I have the password or not. In this case, we do have the password, but it do not authenticate or cannot run as sudo on Nocturnal. That's okay. We can continue to enumerate, and the tool I always go back to is going to be LinPEAS. Let's see if LinPEAS is in here. Sometimes on these HackTheBox boxes, you'll see in the temp folder other people's tools because it is a public server after all. So you may see other people's tools here. In this case, we do not get lucky, but we can quickly transfer over LinPEAS using the exact same method we used to get the database. So linpeas.sh, we're going to listen here, and we're going to transfer to 10.10.11.64 on port 1234. And my LinPEAS lives here in a folder called peas, linpeas.sh. I'll send it over. See, we have the connection here. I'll wait a little bit to make sure everything transfers. And then I will press Control C on this side. This dies, which is good. And we see linpeas.sh here. So I'm going to use chmod to give executable permissions to linpeas.sh and run linpeas.sh. And I'll let this run for a little bit. I won't make you guys sit through LinPEAS doing its stuff, so I will catch you back here when LinPEAS is finished running. Welcome back. LinPEAS has finished running up, and we're going to go all the way up to the start, and I'm going to point out a few things that I thought were interesting and are worth taking a look at. So obviously we're on LinPEAS here. We're going to scroll down, and we're going to look for anything in red or highlighted. And as you go, your eyes are going to be trained to look through LinPEAS output, and you're probably thinking, well, Noah, what's happening here? You're skipping through over all the stuff that's in red. And to be honest, I think the Linux exploit suggester, at least for the HackTheBox boxes, is a little inaccurate, and I usually just ignore them because it doesn't work a lot of the time. Even this, right? CVE 2021, you're thinking, oh man, I'm jumping for joy here. Realistically, this command and this exploit doesn't work because it just doesn't. So we're not exactly sure why LinPEAS calls these things out. There's probably some configuration on this box that makes this happen, but feel free to ignore this stuff for now. Containers I ignore, cloud I ignore. Sometimes cron jobs can be interesting if you see any custom ones, but we're going to skip past that for now. Files opened by processes, this can be interesting, but we're going to skip past it for now. Cron jobs. The two things I mainly look for are going to be this, so active ports we're going to look for, and right away I see something that's interesting. So as we know, 80 is open, 22 is open. On the back end, we've got a SQLite database, so that's running on 3306. But what we didn't know and we didn't see before is 8080 here. So let's take note of 8080, but we'll keep scrolling here. I look at so the open ports and any binaries that are unknown to as default. So we should see that here pretty soon. Keep scrolling. So yeah, SUID and SGID, these two are ones that I like to check, and we see there's no unknown binaries yet. Here there's one, but this is just a rabbit hole, so I'm not going to waste the time in the video to go down it. But looking for unknown binaries here is usually a really good escalation vector. And again, as I said, this is just a rabbit hole, so no need to go down that now. You can keep scrolling through. We can see some root files. User.txt obviously is in our home file. Some interesting logs, but to be honest, that is going to be it. We see var backups and backups here, but that's pretty much it. And the thing I really wanted to highlight there was just the active ports. So we see 127.0.0.1 on port 8080. To enumerate that from the SSH machine without port forwarding, I just like to use curl. So we can curl on that IP and see if anything happens. It's loading, which may not be a good sign for us. I'll close some things on locally, see if that clears anything up. Control C. Let's do -v, see if anything's happening. And it looks like we are connecting, but nothing more than that. So I'm not sure what's happening here. I wonder if the server is down or something like that. This is very interesting. So we're connected on port 80. We're using get, which is what we want. We just want to see what's running here. So usually I would run a curl on whatever port, and if it is an HTTP port, and 8080 frequently is, you'll see the header of what is actually running on that server. So it'll say, hey, this is running this internal service, or this is running, and I've seen cool boxes where it's like it's running security cameras. So you can go to port 8000 and that's the security footage from the last 24 hours and really cool stuff like that. 8080 is frequently used as one of those ports, so that is why we are trying to curl it, and it is not being very friendly to us, which is unfortunate. What if I do HTTP, like, what, just like localhost like this, maybe? It'll, nope. What if I do a slash at the end? Still no luck. I'm gonna give the machine a quick restart, and we will continue after I do that. So I will see you soon after a restart. Right, we're back and the machine has been reset. So once we do this curl command again, we see it doesn't time out, and instead we get a 302, which is great. So if we go down a little more in this text, we see where we're being redirected. So 302 is a redirect, and we're being redirected to login. So let's run a command again on the login page, and we see a big blob of text, which is exactly what we want. And we see our cookie here. We get a cookie set. And the title here is ISPConfig. So what we're looking at here is an ISPConfig login page. We see here username, or here's his password rather, password and username. What we can actually do with curl is log in or attempt to log in with our current credentials, right? So if I do a -x post, so I make a post request to the login page with and hopefully I can remember this syntax properly. Username equals tobias, and password equals, I think I have it pasted, perfect. Let's give that a try, and we see, okay, username or password is wrong. Let's try, instead of Tobias, it may be a different page. Let's try admin. And we see nothing returns, which is a really great sign. Let's do -v again. And we see we get another 302 here, and we are being redirected to index.php. So we can assume, without having to port forward at all, that we have valid credentials within admin and slow motion apocalypse. And you may be wondering, why are we doing this in the first place? Well, one, it gets us more control. And two, we have yet to look up ISPConfig exploit. And I like to search GitHub as well to get POCs. But here you see the first article from ISPConfig, authenticated remote code execution. And we need to be authenticated to do this. And this is the first link. And it's a CVE here. So I highly recommend you to look more into the CVE. I think it's a really cool exploit. But to break it down, I think the GitHub page does a really good job of the description here. Essentially, in ISPConfig, there's a post parameter to this endpoint, and it's not properly sanitized. Similarly to how the password parameter in the Nocturnal cloud storage wasn't properly sanitized, it allows an authenticated admin, or back in Nocturnal's case, any authenticated user, to inject and execute arbitrary PHP code. In our case previously, it was just arbitrary shell code, but in this case, we can inject and execute PHP code, and we can do it using this exploit. So let's just copy this, and I'll make this quick. Nano exploit.py, paste that, and then Python 3 exploit.py. Let's see what we need to add. So we need a user URL 127.0.0.1.80.80. And I'm not sure if we need to do the login page directly. Let's try that to start. And our username is going to be admin, and our password is slow motion apocalypse. And it looks like that works. So we see that we successfully logged in with those credentials as we verified up here. And we injected the shell, and it's located here on the admin panel at shell.php, and we launched the shell. So we injected that PHP code, we executed it, and now we have a shell as none other than the root user. Okay, and it may be a weird ISPConfig shell where we actually can't get out of where our current directory. And this is a weird thing about ISPConfig. So we actually can't leave the admin directory. If we try to cd out of it, we are still in the same directory. So we can't cat root .txt yet. Or maybe we can. That's root.txt. Oops. Cat root.txt. There we go. So we can't cat out the flag, but we really can't navigate around the file system. We can cat etc shadow as well. Like, we have root privileges, but to make our lives a little easier for post-compromise, if you want to go a little further with this machine, you can do a revshell for PHP. And I like to do the PHP exec here, so it's php-r. This one usually works well for me. nc lvmp 4444. Run this command, and who am I? Root ID. And if we do the Python shell here to stabilize our command, or stabilize our shell rather, we should see a nice interface. And there we go. We get root. We can cd into root. We can go around the file system, do whatever. So that is Nocturnal. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I know this is a little bit of a longer video, so sorry if your attention span is less than 10 seconds. You may not fare well if you got to the end of this video. You may be not doing so hot, so I apologize for that. But the big thing is, hopefully you learned something, and hopefully I broke down the topics, especially with this Nocturnal, how the Nocturnal app worked. Being able to see that PHP source code and break it down and break down that command, and seeing how we got command injection and injecting that quote and how that worked and why it worked. Hopefully you got that takeaway, and hopefully you were able to extract some knowledge from this video. That's the goal. But yeah, if you have any feedback, feel free to leave it in the comments below. I read every comment, of course. Like, share with your friends. But yeah, that's it for Nocturnal. Thank you for watching. Hopefully you have a lovely day, and I'll see you guys for the next one.